Hello, everybody, and welcome to Wellness Wednesday. My name is Katie Cleesby, and I am the owner and founder of Rexpert, a marketplace where you can find recreational activities, classes, and coaches near you. And every Wednesday for the last, I don't know, year, we've been doing different topics every Wednesday and promoting local experts in their field and collaborating with the wellness industry. And today we have Amy Beyer, who's going to be talking about different nutrition misconceptions. And she is a fitness instructor and certified nutritional coach, committed to helping people develop a positive relationship with food. And she's got all kinds of different certifications and bachelors. And so she is knows her stuff, and we're very excited to have her present today. So welcome, Amy, and I'll let you take it away.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm excited to be here. As Katie mentioned, I am a fitness instructor and nutrition coach, and I've been in this industry for about 9 years. Before that, I was a stay-at-home mom to 3 boys, and prior to that, I was actually a high school teacher. So I've kind of had different professions throughout my life, but I feel like I've finally kind of found the magic for me in this field of fitness and nutrition. And I came about nutrition kind of a roundabout way. My middle son was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when he was 8. He's now 19. And I was, as probably every mother would do, I was just jumped right into whatever I could find out to help him live his healthiest life. And everything I was kind of receiving in the hospital and clinical settings was a lot of stuff that I didn't want to put in my 8-year-old body. Oh, have him do Crystal Light and all these artificial sweeteners, and I just kind of intrinsically knew that that wasn't the best path. And so I just really started down, just finding out as much as I could about nutrition. And then a couple of years later, boot camp instructor at the boot camp I attend asked me if I would be willing to get certified and start coaching clients in nutrition. And one thing led to another. And here I am. And I really just fall in love with nutrition and spend so much of my time, just trying to get as educated as I can. And it's, as you guys know, it's a constantly evolving and changing field. And as we'll be addressing today, lots of misconceptions out there. And I just love helping people understand as much as I can about nutrition. So am I able to share my screen with everybody, Katie?
Yep, you should have those
Yeah.
permissions now.
Perfect. So I've got slides for you guys. If you have questions, feel free to pop them in the chat or save them for the end. I am going to leave time for questions. And let me pop that out for you guys. All right, title slide, ooh and ah. All right, so we're going to unravel some nutrition misconceptions today. I have 5. It was hard to even narrow it down to 5 because there are so many. But I wanted to start with these 5 today. So the first one, myth number 1, is a calorie is a calorie. We know very well that there are different foods that make that not true. Here's just an example of what 200 calories looks like. On the left, you can see, obviously, these are your plants, right? And look how much more food you get from plant-based 200 calories. I mean, 200 calories of broccoli or celery, I think you could probably munch on for hours. But by comparison, if we look on the right, those calorically dense foods, your gummy bears, your soda, your higher fat, your nuts, peanut butter, etc. So lots of times when we just worry about calories, we miss so much. So we really want to think about optimizing high quality calories instead of just thinking, oh, I want to eat this many calories a day. Because the more high quality calories you get, the better off you're going to be, both nutrition wise, health wise, and weight loss wise. So plant foods, they contain all those vitamins, minerals, and usually lots of water. Okay. What the water does is it helps satiate, helps fill us up. Okay. It's really, really hard to explain all the benefits we get from these whole foods, okay? They satiate our hunger, they fight disease, they nourish cells, they kill cancer cells, they make your skin look good, they make your hair look pretty, gives your body all those vital nutrients. And when we just break food down into nothing more than calories, we're missing out on all of these things. So you really want to think about, what is the quality of the food I'm putting into my body? Whole single ingredient foods, they're also a lot of work for your digestive system, okay? If you think about processed foods, they've already been broken down for the most part in whatever lab or manufacturing facility. But whole single ingredient foods like an apple or a piece of salmon, your body has to do all the work to break that down, to extract the nutrients, extract the fiber, the protein, send it to your muscles, whatever. So this actually decreases the amount of calories that are absorbed from these foods because your body has to do so much work to break it down. So take like an apple, applesauce, and apple juice, right? Apple, your body has to do a lot of work to break it down. It's got the skin and everything inside. And even though, yeah, it has sugar, your body has to work to pull that out. Now, take that same, caloric amount of applesauce. It's pretty much just mush. It's already sweeter. Your body doesn't have to do a lot to break it down. And then we get to apple juice, and that's just sugar going right straight into your bloodstream. So we can see as foods are broken down, it does not give us as much benefit, and our body absorbs more of the calories because it's just going right straight into that system. Your body doesn't have to really digest it. It's also very difficult to overeat whole single ingredient foods. I have never ever had a client who, is like, oh, I just can't stop with those beans, man. Right? What can we not stop with? The chips and the cookies and the wine, things that are highly processed. So if your diet is primarily single whole ingredient foods, you're pretty much going to be okay 99.9% of the time because they are very self-limiting, okay? You will be feeling very full and stuffed by the time you could, even imagine overeating most foods. Maybe an exception with nuts, I will say, and some higher sugar fruits, but for the most part. Finally, when we're just going by calories, and we think about the foods in the grocery store and the kind of the middle aisles with the ingredient and nutrition labels, it's important to know that the FDA allows up to a 20% difference between what is listed on the package as far as like the calories, the amount of fat, sugar, protein, carbs, all that good stuff, and what is actually in the package, okay? So even though you may think like, oh, I'm tracking this very carefully, I'm getting this amount of sugar, this amount of calories, whatever, you may not be. And coming from someone who's, weighed and measured food, at various points throughout my life, I can tell you, even healthier foods, it'll say this many grams is a serving, and, you pull something out and, one English muffin is 3 servings, if you weigh it on a food scale. So that's really important to know, that just because the label says something, it's a scale, right, of accuracy. And then if you're tracking calories, that's another scale of accuracy, unless you're always weighing and measuring. So just things to keep in mind for if you're, looking at straight calories. All right, myth number 2. This is a big one, and usually with all my clients, this is where I start, because I found out this is the one that people most often struggle with, or they think they're doing something good for their health and their weight loss, but they're actually not. And that is skipping breakfast. Myth number 2 is that skipping breakfast is an effective weight loss strategy. It is not, and I'm going to tell you why. So breakfast, you are literally, think of the word, you are breaking the fast, okay? So hopefully overnight, you're getting a good amount of time without calories coming in. And that's important because you want to give your body time to recover. So even though I'm not a personal fan of intermittent fasting, I am a personal fan of an overnight fast, which isn't really a fast. It's just, going a good amount of time, 10, 11, 12 hours is kind of optimum without any food coming into your body, because that gives your digestive system enough time to rest and give your body time to put resources towards, building those muscles back up, burning fat, fighting disease, killing cancer cells, just basically regenerate. Try to think of yourself at work. And if you're trying to finish something or you're trying to do a new project, but everybody else keeps pinging you from the outside, you can't devote all your resources to that one project, right? Your body's the same way. If your body's so caught up in digesting that late night snack, then it cannot devote extra resources to doing all those things we want it to do overnight, ideally while we're sleeping and in that deep sleep. And then it can, really, really push those growth hormones and get us looking and feeling our best. So anyway, overnight, your body can't store much protein. So once you get your protein, your muscles are full, then the protein is sent to your liver. Your body takes the liver reserves all night and breaks that protein down, which is great. That's fine. But when you wake up in the morning, let's say you haven't had, any protein in your body since 6 p.m., 7 p.m., whatever your dinner is, at some point, your body will start to pull that protein from your muscles because it's already exhausted the liver protein overnight. So that's fine, but we have to replenish that, or we're going to break down muscle tissue. We don't want to break down muscle tissue. It is very hard to get muscle tissue. So your body cannibalizes protein all night long. So we have to restore the protein with our breakfast. So you want to have breakfast and you want it to be a high protein breakfast, ideally 25 to 30 grams of protein. Breakfast also helps your body set up those natural circadian rhythms for the day. And I find this is very important because your body, as much as we like to try and get it off schedule, it wants to be on schedule. It wants you eating, active during the daylight, and it wants you resting, restoring overnight. It's just the way nature made us. And we definitely try and fight it at times in our lives, college students, whatever. But it always goes back to, by and large, the healthiest people are the ones who let their bodies follow those natural circadian rhythms. Breakfast also gets your metabolic engines revving, okay? It tells your body, wake up, time to go, whether you're, going to work out, driving the kids to school, getting to work, whatever you're doing. It's wake up, let's go. Happy hormones are hormones that are fed. Unfortunately, when we deprive ourselves of food, especially during our most active times, our cortisol, that's our stress hormone, shoots up because our body's like, what's going on? Why aren't you feeding me? Okay. Excess cortisol usually goes straight to belly fat storage. We don't want that. Most people, like I said, most active time of the day. So that's when we want our calories coming in, right? When we're immediately going to hopefully use them. You don't want most of your calories coming later in the day when you're like, oh, done for the day. Let me put on Netflix, whatever, go to bed. We want it when we're being active. Breakfast also helps balance your blood sugar throughout the day, helps you from having those huge spikes, and more importantly, which also relates to blood sugar, it helps control your cravings all day. If I had $1 for every time I'm first meeting with a new client and they'll say, well, I don't really eat breakfast because I'm not hungry, but then around 4 p.m. I just eat everything in sight. That's very common because guess what? Your body's been kind of starving all day. And then lots of times they'll just be like, oh, I'll have a light lunch, or they're busy with work. And then 4 o'clock hits and it's like, wham. And guess what? Once those crazy cravings hit, you're not like, oh, pass the broccoli. No, you want the chips and cookies and crackers and anything in sight. So a good breakfast helps set you up to, be more successful later in the day and reduce those caloric needs in the afternoon and at dinner when your body doesn't need as many calories traditionally later in the day. Okay, myth number 3, all carbs are bad. I hate this one because people miss out on so many good high nutrient foods because they throw all carbs into the same category. Just remember, Skittles are carbs and black beans are carbs. They are not in the same category at all. So dispel some of your myths about carbs, and let's talk about how carbs should be viewed. So I'm going to start with just, honestly, most of us are not taught nutrition in school unless you study it in college. You don't really learn unless you're kind of seeking it on your own. And I feel like, that old food pyramid is so outdated that we need to learn about the different types of foods, including the different types of carbs. So 3 types are sugars, starches, and fiber. Sugars are anything from an apple to gummy bears. And it doesn't mean they don't have starches and fiber in them. They do. Most carbs are just categorized by what they have the most of. Okay, so just because it's a sugar doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad choice. But it does mean that it has sugar, and it can, cause an excess insulin release if you have too much of it, or if it's not consumed correctly. So, like I said, sugars, anything that's primarily sugar, that also can include dairy, because lots of dairy has naturally occurring sugar in it, and then candy, soda, and then your higher sugar fruits, of course, pineapple, apples, grapes, all that. Starches, those are the things that are, very starchy, like potatoes, bread, your pasta, beans, oats. All those things fall under starches. And then finally, we have fiber. Our highest fiber are non-starchy vegetables, berries. They are, of course, sweet too, but they actually have more fiber than sweetness. So that's kind of the best of both worlds, right? Because they taste delicious, but they're very high fiber. All sugar and starchy plants contain some fiber. So by and large, they're almost always a very good choice. Why is fiber important? That feeds our gut bacteria, which is that mini ecosystem living within us. And the more and more we learn about nutrition, man, that is where the magic happens, is in our gut microbiome. So lots of times when things aren't, going well for us, either health-wise or managing our weight, it's because something is off balance in our gut bacteria. And there's just, we're at the beginning of the science with this, but it's really where the magic is in having healthy gut bacteria. So now that we know the types of carbs, we want to prioritize the plant-based carbs. And they're ideal because the sugar and starch within them, it comes prepackaged with fiber, vitamins, minerals, and usually water, which we talked about before. Obviously hydrating, and water makes things very filling at the same time. Your processed and high sugar starch carbs, I'm not saying don't eat them. They're usually delicious. But make them foods you really enjoy, okay? Don't waste your processed high sugar starch carbs on either things you think are healthy because it says fiber on the front of the package, and we'll talk more about that in a minute, or it's just, the kids' goldfish sitting around, or, the old pizza crust. Don't waste it on that. Use it for things you really like, okay? Because everybody's going to have some of those processed high sugar, starchy carbs, whatever you like. Make it a really good, chocolate chip cookie, or, something you're really going to enjoy and savor, rather than just something you're shoving in your face. They, of course, always should be consumed in moderation. And ideally, if you can, this is the fitness instructor in me, consume them pre or post workout exercise, whether you go on walks or do dedicated workouts, because your muscles are literally sponges for circulating glucose. So I can also tell you from having a diabetic child, he was, a 3-sport athlete in high school, and now he's a big lifter. Anytime he consumes high carbs before or after his exercise, it does not do the same insulin spike, or blood sugar spike, excuse me, that it would if he just had it, at a random time, because those muscles are soaking up that glucose and they're using it to refill the glucose or the output for the workout. And it's the same for you and I. I can just actually see it on his glucose monitor. High sugar, high starchy carbs are also best consumed with a protein or fat to avoid an insulin spike. So when possible, do not consume those carbs that are high starch or high sugar on their own. So an example, you're going to have an apple. We know that's high sugar, even though it also has a lot of fiber and other good vitamins and minerals. It is high sugar. So let's have that with some almonds or a spoonful of peanut butter, something that's going to slow that insulin spike. If you're going to have a nice piece of toast for breakfast, maybe a good piece of sourdough bread, have it with some eggs on it or some avocado toast, get some healthy fat. If you want some potatoes for dinner, have it with some chicken or whatever protein you want. So protein and fat always slows the absorption of those high starchy sugar carbs. And finally, if you are having a treat, piece of cake or a cookie or whatever, when possible, it's definitely best to consume those at the end of a meal, kind of for the same reason. Your stomach is already slowed down digestion because it's got the protein, the healthy fats, whatever else. Maybe you've had some vegetables with your meal. Like we said before, that all takes a lot of work to digest. So that sugary treat doesn't just hit and then immediately that sugar is going into your bloodstream, spiking your insulin hormone. Okay, this is probably my favorite thing to talk about. And that's myth number 4, which is nutrition labels are the best way to determine, if a food is a good choice. And here's one I like to pick on just because I have so many clients who I see this in their food diary or, it's at Costco. So I think people are just like, oh, it's a good price. It's easy, quick protein. Look on the front of the package, it says 30 grams of protein. It must be great. Only 1 gram of sugar. And people, they look at the nutrition facts, only 3 grams of fat, 5 grams of carbs, 2 grams of fiber, only 1 gram of sugar. So lots of people would look at this, oh, look at all those vitamins and think this is a really good choice for me. And I have lots of people who this will be their meal, maybe a breakfast or a lunch. So why isn't this a good choice then? So we see all the stuff you're going to see on the box in the advertising, but let's dig deeper. All right. Here's the ingredients. Over 40 ingredients, first of all. So we can forget those single ingredient foods we talked about just a minute ago. So I've highlighted the more problematic ingredients. Now, I will say some of these ingredients are not problematic for everyone. And maybe if there was just 1 or 2, you might make that decision to say, all right, you know what? I don't have a problem with this one personally, but with this cocktail of this many of them, I wouldn't touch this with a 10-foot pole. So, starting at the top, your proteins, which are your milk protein concentrate and calcium caseinate, by and large, and once again, not to pick on Premier Protein, but it is a pretty cheaper protein source. So you can bet your bottom dollar they're probably not well-sourced protein. It's probably from cows that have been treated with hormones, fed with GMO feed, definitely not organic feed for sure. And once again, that's all personal choice and that's another conversation, but you have to think about the quality of the protein that's coming into your body and what you want coming into your body. Calcium caseinate is another kind of just broken down form of that milk protein. For lots of people, especially if you are lactose intolerant or even borderline lactose intolerant, it can cause you lots of gastrointestinal distress. Sunflower oil, soybean oil, well-known very inflammatory oils. We want to try to keep as many inflammatory oils out of our body. Natural and artificial flavors, that can literally be anything derived from anywhere, and that can be 10 to 15 to 20 ingredients just wrapped up in that. We don't know. Inulin is a fake fiber. Cellulose gel and cellulose gum, those are just thickeners. They kind of keep that shake all stabilized and together. Sucralose, that's Splenda, that has been shown to have lots of gastrointestinal effects, kind of travels along the same baseline as pesticides. No, thank you. Acesulfame potassium is another artificial sweetener, known carcinogen, not allowed in foods in Europe, but yeah, we can have it here. And then we go on and have carrageenan, that's another emulsifier, thickener. And then all the phosphates, which are, do not get good, great grades for safety either. And, some of these things are the FDA or say they're fine in small amounts, but how do you know your amount? So for me, it's just not worth the risk. And I'm just very weary of anything that's supposed to be a fresh drink, and it can sit on that shelf for who knows how long, and it will taste and look exactly the same. So long story short, before you look at the nutrition labels, read your ingredient labels. Okay, if you take nothing else away from this today, take that away. Look first at the ingredient. Ignore the claims on the front of the package. They are trying to sell you something. That is their job, to get your money. They're competing against millions of other products out there. They want your money, so they're going to tell you everything you want to hear. High fiber, high protein, low sugar, low calorie, keto, whatever you want to hear, they will tell you on the front of that package. Ignore it, flip it over. Look at the ingredients first, and then if those pass the test, then look at the nutrition info and see if it meets your requirements for what you like to eat. Don't borrow money to pay off the debt. So that basically means, don't take from, ingredients that you wouldn't want in your body just because the nutrition label looks good and that's, what you're looking for. So I always tell people, like, if you wouldn't cook with it in your home, if you wouldn't bring it into your home and make your family dinner with that ingredient, then why are you putting it in your body? Because somebody else made it for you. So you really got to think through. Another way to look at it is, would my great grandmother recognize this ingredient? Especially if there's multiple ingredients that your great grandmother be like, what is that? Put it back. It's not worth it. Chemicals, there's so many in our food system, unfortunately, now. And directly or indirectly, they can increase fat accumulation and cause obesity. Once again, that's another conversation for another day. But, my personal belief is that our obesity epidemic, the rise in cancer, disease, type 2 diabetes, all these things are either directly caused or indirectly caused by all the chemicals in our food supply now. They wreak horrors on our hormones. It can cause a wide range of health problems. So things to be on the lookout for. And I always tell people, you decide what's most important for you. And it may start slow and then build up over time. That's definitely how I did. So, it's kind of, you will learn over time what to look for, but inflammatory oils, multiple sugar ingredients. The food manufacturers are smart. They know that the first ingredients listed are the highest concentrations, and they're not going to put sugar as the first ingredient, but they're going to break that out into brown rice syrup, and then honey later on, and then another type of sugar later on. And so if you add it all together, sugar is the first ingredient, but they break it out. Artificial sweeteners, we talked about, there's lots of different ones out there now, but for me, they're just not worth it. Most of them are, known carcinogens. And even if they're not, they kind of trick your brain into thinking that something that is really sweet doesn't have any calories, and just messing with that brain signaling from our digestive system is not a good idea. The emulsifiers, thickeners, they're everywhere. Preservatives, obviously, food coloring. California is starting to make some progress on getting those food colorings out of there. They've banned, I think, Red 40 and a few other things. Sorry, Skittles, you got to come up with another way. And then all the different flavorings that are in food. Okay, guys, our final myth to talk about today. And it's funny, after I talked to Katie on Friday, I was asking, because I have a million things going on in my head that we could talk about, but I was like, all right, we only have a certain amount of time. So I asked my husband and my son, I was like, what do you guys think is the biggest? And my husband goes, well, that's easy. Calorie restriction is the best way to lose weight, because I'm always on him that he doesn't eat enough, because he's kind of that old school mentality. He was a wrestler and just that calorie restriction. And I'm always like, no, you need to actually eat more to, lose body fat, put on muscle. So you really want to think about eating to fuel your body. And I've been able to see this firsthand as a fitness instructor and nutrition coach, that when people are able to put together the knowledge that I have to really eat lots of good food to be able to really put that output in at, my workouts, it's like magic. Because low calorie restrictive eating is always temporary, right? We can never maintain it for too long. If we do, we're going to feel terrible. And the main thing I see, and I see this a lot with my female clients, especially kind of in that 40 to 60-year-old range, we get kind of perimenopausal, menopausal, and we're like, what is going on? Where is this extra weight coming from? And immediately we think, okay, I'm just going to reduce my calories, 1,000 calories a day, 1,100 calories a day, whatever. And it reduces their basal metabolic rate. That's how many calories your body burns at rest. That is not what we want. Okay, we're already going downhill. We don't want to add to it. And then when you think of terms of restriction, if you tell yourself, I can't have bread, I can't have this, isn't that immediately all you want? I know it is for me. So a better way is to just crowd out those highly processed foods, those calorically dense foods, those low nutrient foods with lots of high quality protein and plant foods. And learn how to cook them so you love them. No boring salads, no iceberg with a sad cucumber thrown in. If most of your salads come from a fast food joint, that is not how to make salads. So you really have to learn how to cook these plants and proteins so that your body actually starts to crave them. And I know that sounds crazy if you're not used to eating that way, but I promise you, I had a client this morning, she was in my class and she just completed a 6-week nutrition program I did. And she was telling me all about her dinner last night. And she's like, you know what's crazy about that? She's like, I can't go back now. I can't go back. I don't even want that other type of food that I was just eating a few months ago. And I was like, that's it. That's where the magic is. Like, you've made that transformation and that's amazing. Low calorie also restricts nutrients that fuel your body. So trying to get that good workout in, or trying to feel good all day at your job or whatever you're doing. We're active people. We're meant to be active. Our bodies are meant to move. And if you're low calorie, you just don't have the energy, especially if you're trying to build muscle. You can forget it on low calorie. Your muscle needs calories and it needs protein. And if you're trying to, starve your body, it's not going to happen. Also, kind of getting into the mental part of nutrition, which a lot of it is very mental, especially when it comes to weight loss, is it really overcomplicates your relationships with food and can lead to disordered eating patterns. People become caught up in their head in, I've got to be keto, or I've got to be low calorie, or I've got to be this. And they like to label how they eat, and it just overcomplicates things. I like to say nutrition, it's not complicated. It's actually very simple. If it grew from the ground or had a mother, it should be pretty much 80% of your diet. And, don't need to do these complicated math problems really to eat well. Also, then the scale begins to drive your emotions. Usually when you're tying everything to a low calorie diet, your feelings of self-worth, I'm good, I'm bad. No, your weight does not determine your self-worth. And what that scale says should not determine your emotions, because I'm going to tell you a little secret. Most of scale weight is water. It's just changes in water. And that's it. And then finally, when you go low calorie, you usually do lose muscle mass. That's where that weight loss usually comes from. If you're low calorie, guess what? When your muscle mass goes down, your body fat goes up. Okay. So once again, thinking about eating to fuel your body, not restricting your body. All right, guys, how'd I do? How are we on time?
Wow, that was fantastic. You fit so much into a half an hour, and I know there's a lot of to talk about still. Thank you. Great presentation. You do such a good job of changing your voice and keeping it spicy and using great examples. We had a couple people in the chat. Helen looks like she said, because of the sugar law not being a thing outside in Europe, companies can put whatever kind of sugar, etc., that could be harmful in food. So I know, yeah, like Europe and the United States has very different standards and regulations for food.
Yeah, so I think once again, that's kind of where you have to get into reading those ingredient labels, and then specifically with sugar, I definitely look, especially as mother of a diabetic child, I would always I just got conditioned to look at the number of grams of sugar because that sugar sneaks in and things it shouldn't. I mean, something like barbecue sauce, which
Oh
is,
yeah. Pasta
seemingly
sauce.
yeah, pasta sauce. I'm just gonna add a little bit to flavor my meal. And that can sometimes have more sugar in it, per gram than like ice cream. All right, I'll take my sugar and ice cream, thank you very much. But yeah, and then they will add, like you said, the sodium. Gluten-free is another big one. People, think they need to be gluten-free. And then they think just because something's gluten-free, well, it's healthy for you. No, they add so much other stuff because they have to make up for the texture that is lost when you take the gluten out. And lots of times people aren't really gluten sensitive. They're sensitive to the type of products they're buying with gluten in it. So maybe it's highly processed bread. Most of the wheat in the United States is GMO, so it's got that it's that Roundup Ready wheat. So sometimes I tell people, why don't you try organic bread, organic crackers, whatever you're buying, those wheat products, try organic for a few weeks and see if that clears up your symptoms, because sometimes it's not the gluten that's causing it, it's what's in the product. I hope does that kind of answer the question, or maybe she's just commenting on that.
Oh yeah, I think that's a great response either way. I know we've got 9 people in the room. Does anybody want to either come off camera or verbally or type in the chat? This is like you get a nutritionist and very knowledgeable just right in front of you here today. I'm sure you came on because you had questions. I want to make sure I have time for that.
Any questions out there, guys?
Maybe they'll come up with some so I'm plant-based. So
Oh, awesome.
yeah, but I'm always also I'm lactose intolerant. And so I'm always reading the food labels, and I'm shocked that milk powder is in everything. And I get so frustrated, why they put that in there for everything as an additive. Yes. So at what time when we need to finish dinner?
That's a great question, Monica. So I usually recommend to people at least 2 hours before you go to bed, 3 ideally. It kind of depends on your personal schedule. For me, I try to do a 12-hour window of no food coming in. Now, of course, this isn't every night all the time. But weekend night, if I'm going out or something, I definitely have, a cocktail later or food later. But by and large, at least, 5 nights a week. I tried, for me personally, like 7 to 7 works really well with my schedule. But a lot depends on your schedule. The earlier you can have dinner, the better. And I know that's not always possible with work or, family life or kids, or if you want to sit down with your family. But ideally try to get a good 12-hour window between dinner and breakfast if you can. Now, some of my clients, they're like, that's just not possible. So I'm like, okay, what are you at now? And sometimes they're at 9 hours or 10 hours. I'm like, all right, see if you can push that back a half an hour, try to get 10 and a half. So, I love, the kind of the old school dinners, back in, parents and grandparents generation, the early bird special, the 5 or 6 is really the best for us. But unfortunately, with kind of our lives nowadays, that's really, really hard. So the earlier the better, but not so early that you need a snack before you go to bed is the other thing.
So I'm going to piggyback off that. Then if you do need a snack before, is that because you didn't get enough protein or fiber, or you're not like full kind of thing? Or
Yeah, sometimes if people eat dinner too early or they don't eat enough, then they'll be like, oh, well, I usually have a snack around 8 or 9, and that's kind of shooting yourself in the foot. So in that case, I'd say either have a little bit later dinner or a little bit bigger dinner, because really you always want to just minimize those calories that come in your body late at night. And I definitely have some clients where another big thing is, they'll have their dinner with their family, 6:30, whatever. But then, especially clients with younger kids, once the kids are in bed, they're like, oh, that's my time. So then I pour a glass of wine and get some popcorn, and then that might lead to another glass of wine. And alcohol, unfortunately, especially late at night, does not do us any favors as far as body composition. So I encourage them, just like I would if they were having a sweet or a high starchy carb, is maybe you can enjoy your glass of wine with your dinner. Because then once again, your body's processing, no different from alcohol as, just basically like a carb. Your body's processing it along with all the other foods you have coming in instead of just on its own.
Looks like we have another question too from Monica. She's looking for example of a good dinner, more carbs.
That's a good question. So a good dinner, I would say, I always tell it's kind of elementary, but I like to tell my clients to think of your dinner plate as a smiley face. Okay. So one eye, a quarter of your plate, is your lean protein, whatever that may be for you, depending on your diet. So vegetarian diet, that could be like your tofu or your tempeh, that could be salmon, that could be chicken, whatever your protein source is. The other eye over here, the other quarter of your plate, is going to be your starchy, high fiber carbohydrate. So that could be beans, that could be sweet potato, that could be some other, like a grain, like farro or something like that, your high fiber carb. And then your big smile, half of your plate is your non-starchy vegetables. So that could be salad or, roasted broccoli or whatever. So I like to think of, yeah, that's a good, amount of carbs, but only a fourth of it's your starchy carbs. And then those are your high fiber carbs. And then of course, hopefully somewhere in there, you have a healthy fat, and that could be anything from, I roasted my broccoli in olive oil, to a salad dressing, to, some avocado or something of the like, maybe some pumpkin seeds sprinkled on your salad or in a soup or something. So I really like to think of getting all three of your macronutrients, your protein, your healthy fat, and your high fiber carb, and not just dinner, but really every meal. So nothing should really dominate. And, for most people, I encourage them, especially if you're kind of over 40, prioritize the protein, because if you don't, it really doesn't just happen on its own. Carbs and fat are easy to kind of get on our plates, but protein we really have to prioritize. And it's hard. You have to think, like, I usually plan my meals around my protein. So dinner, that would be, a chicken or, turkey. I don't eat fish, not because I have anything against it. I just unfortunately don't like it. I wish I did because it's very healthy. And then from there, kind of, fill the carbs and the veggies and the healthy fat, fill it out. All right, great questions, Monica.
Okay. Does that spark anybody else on the call today? I have one more question for you. All your clients,
Oh.
Sorry, go ahead, Linnell. I don't want to fill the space. If somebody else has, go for it.
Yes, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder. The name of it is Sjogren's. So I am using the AIP way of eating, the autoimmune protocol way of eating, to eliminate foods that would potentially cause me to have painful flare-ups or irritation within my gut, my bowels, things like that. So I have found some great relief by eliminating foods. But they tell you, you have to add them back one at a time to see if this is what's causing the issues that you're having. And I have found that when I eat certain things, especially sugar, that I'm in so much pain. And but I was wondering if you could speak more about it. Have you seen an uptick in your clientele with people who are being diagnosed with autoimmune disorders or diseases? Because I was told by several practitioners that these diseases now, because I'm 54, but these diseases are now becoming more prevalent due to a lot of things. Like, and according to my rheumatologist, I took the COVID and flu vaccination together, and he said my body just couldn't handle that. So it went into overdrive trying to fight those off, and it just stayed in overdrive. So I am now, that was a year and a half ago. So I'm still finding my way with what to eat and what not to eat. A lot of things you miss. Going out to eat is no fun because you don't know, what will trigger a painful flare up within minutes or hours or even potentially overnight, and you wake up and you can't move. So have you found anything that works with your clients that would be useful for me?
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear about that, Linnell. That sounds very challenging. I definitely, I think that I'm not really familiar with that protocol, but it sounds like very, similar to some things I do with a program I run, where we kind of start and we just eliminate all processed food, dairy, we eliminate, bread
Yes.
and all of that. And we just pretty much start with plants and protein. And, everybody's different as far as autoimmune.
Right.
One person can have with autoimmune, flares up another person. But I do think that's a very smart way to do things because, I found that, dairy inflames a lot of people. I had one client who, she went off, she used to do a lot of peanut butter and she wasn't allergic to it that she ever knew of. But when she went off peanut butter, she was like, I had all this like acne on my back for years and I could not, tried everything to get rid of it. I went off peanut butter and I got rid of it. And then there's just, all of our processed foods now just have so much, we were talking about those chemicals and those additives that it's hard to know what our bodies react to. And this last group I did, it was funny. It was a group of 16 people. And within like 3 weeks, we were having our regular weekly meeting and, I have them all tell me like a non-scale victory. And half of the group, the third half of the group were like, I'm off my antacids. I'm off my antacids. I don't have heartburn anymore. And that
Right.
just amazing.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. So it's crazy. Like things that we don't even think about that are in those, processed foods, we don't know what they are. So we're like, okay, I'm sure it's fine. If the FDA approves it, sure it's fine. No, it's usually not. Even more so if you're sensitive and have autoimmune. So it sounds like you're doing a great job, just kind of, introducing things back in slowly and seeing, sugar is inflammous. It's very inflammatory for everyone. So that's the thing I would probably, I'm sure you already are, but pay the most attention to is your sugar intake and added sugars, because those can really wreak havoc on all autoimmune. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, it does. And you're right, because I have found that dairy, I can't have it. I love it, but I can't have it. And the sugar, of course. And so what I really can have is what you talked about earlier, is the protein, fruit, and vegetables. And I can eat that all day long and I would never have a problem. Like I bought a very nice juicer and I juice now. I bought a blender, I bought a juicer and a smoothie maker, Vitamix and a Nama, J something. But to make my life a little bit easier, because those two pieces of equipment have helped me to use real food more other than just eating the fruit, because I wasn't a big, let me just eat these carrots. but I will juice them, with some pineapple and whatever else. I use turmeric and ginger, whatever, and I will drink that. And it's easier for me. And I tried to make pulp muffins and stuff like that. That didn't go too well, but I try to use all of it now. I will start a herb garden because I'm learning more about herbs now and how beneficial they are. So it's a lot of change, really slow change, and change I didn't even want to make, but I'm glad I made it, because the weight does come off because you're not eating processed food anymore. I don't even own a scale, because I would, years of you're not the number on the scale. I had to learn that, but I don't know my clothes. I can't fit my clothes and things like that. But my body feels better until I'm traveling for work. And then it's like, oh God, what can I have? And I'll eat something and it's all downhill from there because it hurts. And then it has to work its way through your system. But anyway, I am glad because I'm healthier. I never would have done this on my own. I just wouldn't have eliminated all the food that I love to not be in pain, but it's worth it. It's worth the sacrifice now. Instead of, I'm 54, my husband's 58. He's now on the Mediterranean way of eating. So I cook that for him, but I cannot eat it because of the feta and all of those wonderful things that you want. But it's worth it because you feel so much better. But you miss it just being a human. I want a cup of coffee. I love coffee, but everything I put in the coffee wasn't good. But anyway, it's like just a hit and miss. But when you eliminate all of that food and you start putting them one after the other back into your diet, like you said, you learn what your body can and cannot tolerate. You may not be allergic to it, because I'm not allergic to anything. I have an allergist too. She's like, you're not allergic to anything, but I have sensitivities to different foods, and that's the difference. So anyway, that's my story.
Thank you for sharing, Linnell. You sound like you're on the right track.
Yeah, food is medicine. I am learning that.
It is. I'm actually going to pop Linnell speaking, made me think of this. I'm going to pop it in the chat. There is a great series on Netflix that just came out, I don't know, a couple months ago. And it's one of the best food documentaries I've ever watched. And I've watched a lot of them. It's done by Dan Buettner. And it's Secrets of the Blue Zones. If you haven't heard the Blue Zones, they're the places around the world where they have the most centurions, the people who live to 100. So, and they, I mean, by and large, they just eat real food. But the videography, it's gorgeous, and just the way these people live. So, I mean, you can pick up so many great living tips, nutrition and otherwise. So if you've got Netflix and looking for a good show to binge, there it is.
Awesome. Okay. Well, we can wrap things up. Does anybody have anything else before we go? Any more comments or questions?
I did see that documentary, by the way. It was amazing. And I saw he was trying to replicate it in some areas of the U.S. and how the obesity rates in the schools and everything, and the attitudes went down, and the feelings of community and everything that they get in those areas. It wasn't just food; it was a lifestyle that they led, and it's wonderful to see all over the world how people are living and how it can help us to have a better, not just longevity, but like healthy longevity. I just old and sick, but older and vibrant, and still contributing, and your family just being so together on the same page with their nutrition. So that was great.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, I totally agree.
All right. What a great way to wrap things up. You know, it's a lifestyle. So thank you so much, Amy. Lots of amazing tips. This was recorded, so for those of you listening, or if you were kind of like doing your lunch thing or eating your lunch and didn't want to go back and rewatch it, I'll upload it to our Rexpert YouTube channel. And then usually I try to do that at the end of the week. And then I'll send an email reply all to everybody who signed up for this today, all 30, with the link, and then Amy, your information. So if you have like a group coming up, another 6-week plan, or you want to share your website or anything like that, let me know and I'll include that in the link.
All right, great. Thank you.
All right, awesome. Linnell, it's Rexpert is our YouTube channel. But if you're signed up on the email, I'll make sure you'll get it too on there, because you got the Zoom link too. So okay, great. Awesome. Thank you so much, Amy. Have a great rest of your day. We really
All right,
appreciate
thanks,
you
Katie.
speaking.
Bye, guys.
Bye.